Corey Seager. What did you notice about him up close at spring training? And is he going to be ready for this moment? I mean, he was one of the talented studs in LA, but now, hey man, you're the franchise. You are the franchise guy. What have been your thoughts on Seager?
So he's, and I first met Corey in 2013 when he was playing for the Great Lakes Loons, the Dodgers minor league affiliate.
Yeah.
And he is now what he was then, and that's a boring kind of flatline guy in a good way. He's a really nice guy. I like Corey. But he's not a guy who strikes me as someone who lets the moment get the better of him. I mean, heck, he dominated the playoffs here in Arlington a few years ago, won World Series MVP. So I do worry about how guys who get a big contract are going to respond immediately. I think eventually it all kind of, it evens out. I don't worry about that as much with him. He is one of these like laser focused, routine oriented guys, robotic in a good way. And one of the things that just stood out to me doing a deep dive on him after the Rangers signed him was how little of an advantage pitchers can get against him. Lefties, righties, and he's a lefty who crushes lefties. That is rare. He has very few holes, and I spoke to some people this spring on the Padres side, one being their GM, AJ Preller, who said that he is so fired up that Corey Seager is out of their division. And the other was Gabe Kapler with the Giants, who was also previously with the Dodgers, so he's gotten a lot of Corey Seager, and he said this is one of the best hitters, one of the most foundationally sound hitters I've ever been around. The only thing separating Corey Seager from, I guess, having the numbers that back up that sort of confidence is the health. And I think the Rangers hope comparing Seager to Correa, because the Rangers, as far as I'm aware, really did not put in any effort on Carlos Correa. They looked at Correa and thought the back was an issue. They thought that was something that maybe would kind of predict the future a little bit. I think they believe Corey Seager's injuries are a little more fluky, like getting hit by a pitch and stuff of that nature. If he's healthy, this is a very special hitter.
I mean, that can be the truth, right? You know, like we've seen guys that are getting hurt that you get hit by a pitch, you get, you jam your finger into a base. And then there's guys like Trout who just get hurt and get hurt and get hurt all the time, and it's muscular and not anything to do with a freak accident.
And Seager's a big guy, and he plays shortstop, and those two things don't always go so well from a physical maintenance standpoint. But again, I think the Rangers, in assessing his injuries, don't feel like they're connected.
What have you noticed or learned about Semien?
Yeah, so again, doing a dive on him. He has a very unique power surge late in his career. Now, he did benefit last year from playing in Dunedin and Buffalo. Those are two hitters' parks, minor league parks that Toronto played in. But his expected home run figure was only 4 lower than his 45 home runs, most by a second baseman. I think the power is real. Maybe not 40 home run real, but what he did was, and if Jeff Fry's listening, then he might want to change the channel because he thinks that you should hit ground balls all the time, and I get that. I respect that. Marcus Semien lowered his ground ball rate significantly and increased his pull rate. And so basically, combining those two things, he really put a focus on elevating the ball to the pull side where guys have the most amount of power. And he also became so much better at hitting the elevated fastball. That was a weakness, and that became a strength last year. He's actually one of the best. He didn't just improve. He was one of the best in Major League Baseball at hitting the elevated fastball, which until they change the strike zone is such a lethal weapon for all pitchers. And what I like about that is it just shows growth for a guy who is beyond 30. Marcus is 31 years old. He'll turn 32 in September. I like guys who are able to grow. I mean, that's one of the things that I think makes Mike Trout so special is if you go year to year with Mike Trout, in 1 year, you'll identify a hole. You look at the next year, that hole's gone. In year 2, you identify a hole. In year 3, that hole's gone. And Marcus Semien's kind of had that trend over the last few years.
What's his natural position? Because he was an MVP as a shortstop.
Yeah, I think his best defensive position is second. I mean, he won a Gold Glove there, and I think that his range best suits him at second. When I first saw him in college, he played second, and then he moved over to shorts, and he kind of went back and forth early on with the White Sox coming up through their system. I think he is best suited as a second baseman. But if something were to happen to Corey Seager, if you were to give him a day off, I don't think you're struggling with Marcus Semien at short. And remember, he was awful at short when he first came up. This was the whole, like, Ron Washington pulled him aside when they were together in Oakland after Wash's time here and was like, we got to make you right. And Marcus Semien is very, very outspoken about how Ron Washington basically changed his career.
What is a difference that you think, if any, that Chris Young has brought with this leadership group together with him, JD, and Woody?
Well, definitely an outside perspective. It was on your show last year. I remember John Daniels admitted that one of the benefits of having Chris Young is having fresh perspective and someone who, I think JD's word was blinders, that didn't have blinders because, the reality is JD's a super loyal guy who had accomplished a lot of really good things with guys, and I think had a tough time separating those accomplishments from where they were at the present day. And, I think that, and I don't know, I'm sure that, the minute the team starts having success, people are going to ask, is this a JD thing or a Chris Young thing? The reality is it's a very collaborative effort. But I think that Chris Young has come in and he offered his own assessments on people within the organization. And I think changes were made very much at his recommendation and maybe not even just his recommendation, but because that's what he wanted to do. And I think that, he has helped shake things up in a good way. Nothing extreme. It's not like he's come in and like how I'd imagine like Draymond Green would just totally explode a room. I think that, he's come in and with a very responsible and measured method has assessed things. And we talked about when they hired him, he's a known, or like the reputation is he is a great problem solver. That was a big strength of his within Major League Baseball. And I think he has come in and already done a number in solving some problems.